Here we are. It is November, which to me means it's Christmas time. Hey, this is episode 83, and I got one question for you. Y'all ready for this? Come on, come on. What is going on, Human Hope Familia? Welcome to episode 83. 83 of the Human Hope Podcast with your host, Carlos Enrique with Guzman and Chico Cabello, or Los for short. Oh, do we have some fun stuff today? But nothing can be more fun than the fact that I would like to give October a round of applause. Round of applause for October. Why are we giving October a round of applause? Well, because it's over. October's over. And I would like to just say thank you for ending October. Because what that means is that I get to put up my front yard Christmas decorations, which if you've been watching on the Insta stories, you've been watching me do that. And I mean, we skip right over Thanksgiving over here. I mean, we have Thanksgiving. I like Thanksgiving. I like turkey, gravy, all the things you get at Thanksgiving. But Thanksgiving's just kind of like pre-Christmas. And in my world, we just go. So what do you guys think? Are you guys like, no, Carlos, it's Christmas after Thanksgiving? Or are you, no, we're in the holiday season. It's time to light it up, put up the lights. Well, that's what we're doing. My mom's been helping me. My mom and dad are here. Fermin is upstairs in his recliner that an Insta Familia member let us borrow. So, yeah, my dad's here. You guys love my dad. He is, things are progressing with his dementia, and it's sad. Yeah, it's absolutely sad. He definitely doesn't recognize me like he used to. And it's sad. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about that besides the fact that I hate it. And, but he still has joy. He's still silly. He may have to ask who I am every 5 seconds, but once he says and figures out that I'm his son, he just relaxes. I can see him take a breath. So, I don't know what's happening up in there in that dome of his, but I'm continuing. I'm not going to stop praying healing for it. So that's where we're at here on the Whitaker Homestead. Christmas is going up. I got a couple more trips left this year, and then I'm done. I've got a lot of work to do to prepare for my book launch, which is happening in January, which can I be just a little bit vulnerable with the Human Hope Familia, with you guys listening? There's thousands and thousands of you listening every week, and I'm so grateful. But this is the first time I'm launching a book with a number in mind. This is the first time I'm launching a book saying, I would love to see my pre-orders hit a certain number. And so if you haven't yet, and you feel like what I put out here into your ears on a weekly basis is like part of your ethos, I guarantee you're going to love this book. The book is called How to Human. You can pick it up at www, make sure I type this in right, how2humanbook.com. That's how2humanbook.com. Not actually the number. You don't type that, just 2, but the number 2. How2humanbook.com. And yeah, I mean, it's just a great way for you to support what I try to do as an author. And here I am telling you, put my heart on a platter saying, I believe this book has the potential to change a lot of your lives and relationships. How to Human. 3 ways to share life beyond what distracts, divides, and disconnects us. Speaking of humans, I've got one of my favorite humans on the episode today. Blaine Hogan is our guest today. And Blaine and I have known each other a long time. We'll get into the depths of our relationship. But the way I know Blaine is Blaine actually went through this. I used to have a course, like before courses were cool. Because I'm talking about, this was like 2000 and what are we, 2009? I did this, but it was called creative coaching. And I just helped creatives be creative. Go figure. And Blaine was one of the people that went through my course, and we just hit it off at that place in that moment. And I watched him take off in his career. Blaine is one of the most creative human beings I've ever met. You will have ever met. He is he's an actor. He's a producer. He's a director. He's a writer. He does all the kind of film stuff. And his story today, he's going to lean into his book that is coming out called Exit the Cave. But I want to let you know something. If you're a fan of Kill the Spider, you're going to love his book, Exit the Cave. And he's going to talk a little bit about really what it means to redeem your story, to change your past. Can you actually do that? Blaine is going to help us actually get there. But before we hop in to the conversation with Blaine, and we're going to get there so fast, guys. We're already, listen, it's only 5 minutes and 48 seconds and I'm about to jump in. But before that, I would love to give some love to our Human Hope partners. You know, those conversations that you stumble into, not expecting it to change your life. And then halfway through, you're like, holy crap. I'm never going to forget this, and I'm going to use this the rest of my life. That is what happened when I talked to Blaine. So, Human Hope Familia, I'm so excited for you. I've already had the conversation, but I'm excited for you to get to know my friend and your brand new friend, Blaine Hogan. Here we go. Okay, Human Hope Familia, I have my friend, longtime friend. I can say longtime friend.
I think
Blaine
that's
Hogan.
right. Yeah.
I mean, we can say that, right?
I would say decades ago, I remember tweeting, I'm in an elevator with @LostWit in some like conference in somewhere in the South. And I was starstruck. And then I think I like stalked you like by a stairwell and made you eat lunch with me. I think is what happened.
Who knows? That is amazing. But I think I was the same way backwards, bro, because remember, I was like a big Prison Break fan back in the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second, dude. I think I remember you from that TV show.
Yeah, that's like 2005. So we're going
dude,
way back.
We're going, the fact that we can say decades ago, in two respects, just, you know, the fact that anybody that knew me pre 2020, Carlos, is like an old friend. And then B, the fact that Twitter's been around that long. You know, right. I think we forget how long the digital imprint has actually been imprinting.
1,000%. Yes. No. Yeah. And I really do appreciate the Prison Break reference. It's how I got my SAG card. It was a pivotal role, a 3-episode arc of a prison named Cherry.
Yes. It's so true.
No, you can go to YouTube and you type Blaine Hogan Cherry, and there are fan pages that are like devoted to that arc.
No way. That is it actually makes me kind of want to, I mean, let's okay. So first of all, hello, Human Hope listeners. This is Blaine, my buddy. He was not just Cherry on Prison Break, but that is that is a little piece of your story. We're going to get into a whole bunch more of your story, but I would, you know, I do want to like lean back for anyone that is older than 20 years old, maybe 25, that remembers that show Prison Break. Like, let's be honest, like what a great premise.
Such a good premise.
I mean, it had me hook, line, and sinker, bro.
Yeah. Brother gets put away, and to save his brother, he gets himself locked up and tattoos the exit plan on his body.
Yes. I mean, that was just so good. And so, I mean, were you like, were you just acting at that point? Was that something that you stumbled into? Were you like, no, I'm going all in here?
Yeah. I mean, since I was 9 years old and performed my first play at the Blaine Community Theater. So I grew up in Blaine, Minnesota, which is a strange thing.
Yeah, that is strange.
And I knew since I was 9 years old, like that's all I ever wanted to do. I was like, this is my path in life. I want to be an actor. And so went to theater school, bounced around the country, and it ended up in Chicago. And around that time, like early 2000s, you know, The Dark Knight, Batman, they were shooting there. And it became kind of this really cool TV town as well. And Prison Break, that specific show, shot a big portion of their show at the Joliet prison that no longer was in working condition, but it had become a film set. And so just kind of right place, right time. I auditioned. They just needed, a young, slim, attractive, tasty treat that could be given to Teabag, who was the protagonist or antagonist of the show.
Yes.
And that was my arc. And so amazing. It was really fun. But, coinciding with that was some of the darker moments of my life.
Yeah.
Right in that kind of consequential time where, from a career perspective, like I was working at the biggest theaters in Chicago. I was going back and forth auditioning for Broadway producers in New York. I had this little role on a TV show, but things were kind of moving up into the right. But at the same time, my personal life was falling apart, man.
Well, you go into, obviously, that is that's a big part of your story. It's a big part of what you ended up writing about. It's a big part of just your journey when it comes to exit the cave. And I would love to just kind of, maybe even before you get into maybe what you're used to talking about with the book, I look at the cover. It's a strong title. I love the cover, but I think, okay, what's the cave, Blaine? What's this cave that, do we all need to exit it? Is just some of us need to exit? Do we all have this cave? What's this cave that you're talking about in Exit the Cave?
Yeah. So I was 17 years old. I was going to Blaine High School, sophomore in high school.
Yes.
And I'm sitting in the back of my humanities class, and our professor tells us the story of the cave. Plato, very famous philosopher, he told the story of this allegory, and I'll give you a really brief version of it. But essentially, the story begins with there's this group of people. They're all in a cave, and they're chained. Their face is looking up at this giant wall, and they're seeing all these shadows. One day, the hero stands up. He looks around. He sees it's all been manufactured. There's a fire, and these people are walking these objects which are casting these shadows. He looks through the fire, and he sees this one dot of light, and he begins to move towards it. And Plato's essentially telling this story using this metaphor that we're all kind of looking at shadows, and we need to venture into the light. And so the story goes, the hero makes his way out of the cave. He sees truth for what it is. The light sears, but he, comes to, and then there's a twist. That instead of running away from the cave as far as he can, as fast as he can, he turns around, he goes back into the darkness. He crawls his way back. He stands before his tribe, and he says, there's so much more. And I remember being 17 years old, and I heard that story sitting in the back of my professor's class, with an Umbro hoodie and a bowl cut and braces. And realizing oh, that's me. Already at that point in time, I had experienced a good amount of darkness and shadow through trigger warning, some abuse that I experienced as a kid, watching my dad wrestle with addiction, having a mom who's a severe diabetic who had seizures. And so I heard that story, and I was like, man, is there more? Is that a thing that I could do? And that story has stayed with me. Just you just stories just hook their teeth into you, and they just don't let you go. And for a long time, I imagined myself as the hero of that story, as the one that kept returning back to darkness. So as an artist, as a creative, I was like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to learn these things, I'm going to get the truth, and then I'm going to come back into the dark spaces, the cinemas, the theaters, the whatever, and tell you the truth. And there was some real goodness to that. But also at the same time, the story that from 17 years old and the things that happened to me as a kid had caught up to me. And I realized that I actually needed to go back into the cave and go back into the darkness, not to free others. I myself needed to be freed again. And so the book really is telling my story of the work that I did, that I had to go through to go back into my past, to do the thing that they say that you cannot do. which is change your past.
Wow. Okay. So 2 questions from that. One, is this a journey that everybody needs to go through in some way, shape, or form? And 2, can we actually change our past?
Yeah. Number one, this is something we all get to do.
Okay.
Like we all get to exit our caves. Like I look at the gift of rock bottom and the gift of addiction. I think some of us our proclivities take us to the kind of big ones.
Yeah.
And but the truth is, I think we have our mutual friend Ian Morgan Cron says we're all addicted to something. So that's great news.
Yeah.
So yes, it is something we all have to do. It's also something that we really do get to do. We do not need to be tied to those shadows, the shadows that have been shown to us in the shadows of our own making. So that's number one. Number 2, yes, you can change your past.
Explain.
Yeah. So in 2005, I'm working on Prison Break. I have what is known as a panic attack that takes me to the emergency room and basically sets me off on this journey where I realize the abuse that I experienced as a kid has now caught up all the way with me, and I am a full-blown sex addict, is what I would say, and I say it in the book. And I realize, I have a choice to make. I have a choice towards life, or I know how this is going to end.
Yeah.
And so I take what was the crazy choice, the blue pill, which is the one.
Yeah.
And I find myself in Seattle under the tutelage of a guy named Dan Allender. And
I love that guy.
Amazing. And while I'm there at this program, 2 years, I called my agent. I said, hey, I need to take 2 years off. Go do this program out in Seattle. I'm not going to be acting for a bit. And in this class of Faith, Hope, and Love, he says, the easiest thing to change is your past. It's the most hyperbolic, insane thing and almost cruel thing that you could say to someone who's experienced any kind of trauma. Like, just change your past.
Yeah.
And he says, so he started to break it down. He said, well, the future has not yet happened, so you don't have any control over that. And we're right in the middle of the present. But you actually can go back and re-narrate your past. Stephanie Fu, who's an author, she's got her own book on complex PTSD. She says that at some point when your story catches up to you, you realize that you have become an unreliable narrator of your past. My friend Steve says that as kids, we are the great, we perceive everything that's going on, but we're the worst interpreters. And so most of us, when we look at our past, are unreliable narrators of what actually happened. Not like what happened, but you know what I mean? Like you can't change the harm. Yeah. You can't undo what was done.
Right.
But when I went back into my past and began to mine sort of the particularities of particularly my abuse, which is a lot of what the book deals with, I started to look at the curiosity that I had as a kid that was taken advantage of, or the desire just to be like wanted or held that was taken advantage of. I had used all of those hard things and imagined that those are all going to happen again. And so because of that, I protected myself from ever looking at the possibility that there might be goodness in my past.
Wow.
And so when I began to do some of the work of reminding the past and really remembering the past, I started to look at those worst moments of my life and realized, oh my gosh, there is such goodness. And what that does is it changes the space-time continuum. And by that, I mean, we think of time as linear, right? Past, present, future. The way we experience time really is inverted. The way we experience time is past, future, present. So whatever happened to us in our past, especially when it comes to trauma or pain, we template that or project it onto the future. And then however we're imagining the future is how we live in the present. And so Dan was right. if I went back and started remembering my past, like putting it back together in a way that I hadn't thought of before, it helps me completely reimagine what's possible in the future.
Yes.
And now if I'm imagining something that I could have never imagined before in the future, I'm living differently now in the present. And it changes everything. And then you go, oh my God, it's true. You actually can change your past.
Wow. That is, gosh, it's so good. I hear you tell that story, and I've had my own version of those moments in therapy with, my inner healing prayer guy here in Nashville, where yes, like if you go, you do have complete and total ability to go back and find the things, find the beauty, find the things that you didn't even know were there. I mean, you knew they were there in the moment, but you've obviously not remembered that they're there. And it's such beautiful work. It's difficult work, but it is very important work, I think, for all the listeners that are listening right now. So somebody's listening to this right now and they're thinking, okay, so I mean, is this something, Blaine, that I can am I going to read your book and figure this out? Do I need to read your book? Do I need to find a therapist? Do I need to, what do I need to do in order to go remind myself of some things?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, of course, I'd love for you to read the book.
Yes.
But also, and why I say that first is my hope in sort of sharing all my secrets. I keep reminding myself, speaking of reminding, that I didn't have to do any of this.
Yeah.
Why did I write a book that's telling all my deepest, darkest secrets? And then why am I asking people, can I please go on your podcast and tell everybody about it? But I know that when I have experienced art where someone has gone to their deepest and darkest places, and they talk about how maybe even just for a moment they came out on the other side or came out in a different place.
Yeah,
I'm inspired to maybe do a little bit of that myself. And so the book, I hope, is a guide in that respect, that it might give someone the courage. Someone might say, me too. It might be a moment or give someone the requisite courage to do something different. And then absolutely find a therapist, absolutely find a spiritual director, absolutely find a group of people or just one person that you can tell the things to that you've never told anyone.
So good. I am going to also, before and after this interview, echo that I would love for all my listeners to go and do this and get the book, pick up the book, not only because I'm a fan of Blaine, I'm a friend of Blaine, but one of the things that I think has been so beautiful that has come out of your story as you've done the work, as you have quote unquote exited the cave, is that it's not just healing in your personal life that has been a result of this, but I would, and we haven't talked about this, but it wouldn't be a stretch to say that your professional work, that everything that you're putting out into the world probably is way more colorful than it was even before you had this thing happen where you were able to exit the cave. Talk to us maybe about some of the benefits of doing the work and then coming out on the other side, because I think in the subtitle of your book, or somewhere in the book, it says, redeem your story, redefine your creativity. How does redeeming your story and redefining your creativity exist hand in hand?
Yeah, well, so it's a great dichotomy, because when I found myself in this moment of kind of two paths, what am I going to do? And I realized that I had been incredibly creative when it came to my art. Like I was making weird performance art projects and I was doing all kinds of crazy things. And I had been able to do that, but what I hadn't been able to do was actually be creative in my life. And so now I look at it and I go, oh, what's the greatest art project I'm working on right now? It's my life. Yeah. It's my family. It's being a dad to 3 daughters who are just destroying me at every turn. And then also, I think another benefit is once you begin telling your secrets, you realize you're not alone, which is, I think, something
Yes.
that we as artists and creatives feel all the time. You feel the imposter syndrome. You feel that person's got it figured out, that person's. And as you begin to share, you start to realize, oh, no, we're a community of all a bunch of ragamuffins, which is what I think about like way back in the day, Carlos, ragamuffin soul, that we just are like coming up from the muck and mire, and we are not alone. And so as you begin to share those things, as you begin to work through and work out of your own caves, you begin to feel the communal presence of we're all, everyone's going through something. That you're not alone. And then I think you're right that there is a richness and a vibrancy to the work that I do now that I didn't have back then. And I think it was because I was in hiding. I was still afraid of what if people knew everything? What if, and I'm not saying no one needs to do this. No one needs to tell on themselves and go write a book. You don't have to do
Everybody
that.
is going to be on my podcast sharing all of their darkest secrets. That's what's going to happen.
No, I would say there's a world where that's the most amazing thing that could possibly ever happen. Just that a turnstile of Insta Familia just going through,
right? Yeah. I don't have time for that. But
I know, but that's why projects like Post Secret and other things like that
absolutely
are so powerful, because it creates a container for people to show up and be who they are. And I feel like now I'm like, oh, okay. I'm showing up in all these ways. And I don't feel like I'm hiding as much anymore. And that's, I think, something I would also note is like, there is no on the other side. It's like, there's no up and to the right, and then the opposite is a backslide. It is this like dynamic spiral where we are always meant to be in motion. And sometimes that motion throws us back a little bit, but just like that sort of the light is darkest just before dawn at the very end of, that spiral is like a hairpin turn away from moving forward again. And so I don't know. I'm rambling now, good. Carlos. But
dude, I love this. Well, you're not rambling because I think as I'm hearing you talk and share that, I'm imagining the listener right now that's listening to the podcast. And, there may be a listener that's like, well, I mean, Blaine, like I wasn't abused when I was a child. I don't necessarily have a lot of deep, dark secrets. I mean, sure, I've got some, but like, how is this message going to impact me? Because here's the thing, and I tell people this all the time. I wrote a book called Kill the Spider, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, and honestly, like this sounds it sounds like it's got the same heartbeat. So, if you're a fan of Kill the Spider, and I know a lot of people were, this book, I feel like is really aligned with that. But I tell people all the time, like, no, listen, we all have spiders. Like some of them are a lot, may look grosser, but they're all still spiders. So talk to the listener that may be listening like, well, I mean, life's pretty good. Like, I don't know if I necessarily, have a cave that I need to exit. What would you say to them?
Yeah. First, yes. Oh gosh, it's so good. And I loved Kill the Spider. And you're right. It is funny because it is the same message in many ways, just told in a different way. Your story, my story. I would say that one, we are all suffering from some kind of addiction. That's like we're all suffering from something. We're all hiding from something. But some of us are lucky enough or unlucky enough to have things that just look nice on the outside.
Yes.
Like you're a people pleaser. But are you doing that so people don't get to know you? Mm-hmm. Are you constantly in control and just have it all together because you're so terrified of what might happen if you just open your hands? So I think that there are plenty of us that, yes, may not have any of the big ones, but are still in some kind of hiding. There's some kind of pattern that is going on that is preventing us from being free, from feeling a sense of freedom that I can just show up fully who I am, kind of faults and all. And so I actually think that in some ways those are the hardest ones. So my addiction is very black and white, right? Like I had a rock bottom, and it forces you into focus. That moment of clarity is huge. But for the listeners and the people that are feeling like, well, I don't have any of those big ones, yours is just a little bit more hidden. It's a little bit more subtle. Your journey to rock bottom is more of like a subtle slide than like this big hard slam. And it makes me think of wildfires and controlled burns, kind of the idea between that. The outcome is the same, right? Everything burns to the ground, and then, there's this fertile soil for new life to grow. My hope is that you wouldn't have to get to that moment of a wildfire, that you could put yourself in a position realizing like, you know what? I wonder why I do that. Like just getting curious about why do I always, why am I always wanting everything to be in control? Why am I always trying to make sure that everyone's okay so that I'm okay? Just getting curious about that, I think will open you up to some of these spaces where, as you said, like, do we all have a cave to exit? The answer is yes. And we get to. And so you don't have to, but life is going to be so much better for you and for the rest of the world if you come out of hiding.
Yes. Gosh, it's so good. I've actually never heard that example of a wildfire versus controlled burn. Like that is so true, like the process of what's going to come out of the ground is still going to be the same, but it's just a matter of like how you get there. And I would like to remind the listener, if you're listening to this, and you may be thinking, well, my caves may not look like, Blaine's cave that he had to come out of, but listen, workaholism, gossip, financial caves that you've got to come out. You're an overspender. You're like all of these things that we're using to medicate these wounds that we can go back and rewrite the narrative around the wound. Am I getting it? Am I
That's
understanding
it. You got it.
what
you
you're
got
speaking
it.
here?
That's exactly it. Yes. Come on through, Carlos. That's it.
I'm coming. I'm getting out my cave, people. I'm getting out. This is so good. Oh man, this has just been so encouraging. Blaine, let me transition here just for a moment here. You were acting, and now you're kind of like creative directing, you're doing, all kinds of things where you're not necessarily in front of the camera.
That's right.
Is there any, is there any desire inside of you to, put the lens back on you again and be like, hey, this is like Cherry 2.0. Like what's happening here?
Yeah. Well, so Cherry unfortunately is dead, Carlos.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
That's right. Cherry's dead. Yeah.
But I did hope like second season, like he could go back like a soap opera. Like he could go back as the ghost of Cherry.
Yeah, the ghost
and like haunting.
Yeah. Plenty.
Come on. There's so much backstory to Seth Hoffner was his real name. Actually, there's a whole backstory.
Wow.
Sure. I think that there's probably part of that. I remember I think it was probably Mark Wahlberg. I remember him talking about the greatest actors that he knew were not the ones that's the only thing they did. Yeah. He was like, they had rich lives. They had interior life. They like went to their kids' soccer games and they like, and so I think as I'm getting older, I'm 42 now, I do see a world where maybe that kind of pops back up eventually. It's not something that I'm pursuing now because we just moved to Atlanta. We live across the street from like the biggest studio outside of Los Angeles.
Yes.
My wife is a writer. We're trying to get her scripts made.
Oh, that is awesome.
So we, at the present moment, no. But I'm not opposed to coming back as the ghost of Cherry in some sort of capacity.
Listen, if there's any big Hollywood producers that are listening to the podcast right now,
hey,
I've got Blaine's number. So just
that's right.
Email me, if I'll be very selective. Okay. Only if the right role comes along.
I appreciate
That is Atlanta has kind of turned into like this hub, right? Like freaking Stranger Things and like everything's there.
Well, so we live in a town called Trilith, which is this like micro home community that's literally across the street from what used to be Pinewood Studios. Pinewood UK is where they shot Star Wars, Harry Potter, all of it. And now it's like 27 sound stages, a virtual stage. It's where they shot Wakanda Forever, Homecoming, Spider-Man. So just like I'll get my kids from the school bus, and across the street we'll see all the blue screens up for whatever they're doing. Yeah, so
that's so crazy.
It's insane. So Marvel is doing incredible stuff here. It's really become kind of like the Hollywood of the South. Yeah, you got Tyler Perry Studios also up north. But yeah, this is. And again, I mean, just to kind of like going back to what I was saying, like, Carlos, I could have never imagined this for my life. Like, I just couldn't. And it wasn't until, because I knew what was going to happen. I knew the other shoe was going to drop. I knew I couldn't commit. I knew I couldn't stay sober. I knew it. I knew this was how it was going to end. And then I changed my past. Like I remembered, I put something back together. Now I didn't, right? Like, sure. I don't know how that works. God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, like does the work. Yeah. I try to put myself in the right position to do that and thank God and for grace that is. But like, I get chills when I think about it. Cause I'm looking out my window and I'm like, I don't know how I ended up here.
Right.
I don't know how it happened. But it did. And, man, am I grateful to be here.
Well, and again, for anyone that's listening, that is looking out their window, wishing that they could be saying, oh, I don't know how I ended up here, as opposed to saying, I don't want to be here. What the hope in your story is that, your story is not over. And you're continuing to write it. And, I've watched you continue to write your story. I know the past part of your story. And it gives me hope, man. Like every single person listening to this, really, really needs to hang on to that hope.
Well, and I would say, like the words that I heard as a 17-year-old kid looking out the window of my humanities class being like, there's nothing else. Yeah. Hearing the words, there is more, gave me hope. And like, that's what I would say is that I know what it feels like to sit and look out a window and you're only seeing shadows, but there is so much more.
There is more.
There's more.
There's more, man. There's more. Well, listen, everybody, I think what's the website? I think you can go to exitthecavebook.com.
That's right.
Yep. Exitthecavebook.com. If you're listening to the podcast, and again, the podcast is on YouTube, it's on all the audio platforms, but if you're listening to it before the book comes out, you can still go pre-order it. I think you can probably pre-order it at all the places.
That's right.
And I'll just go ahead as an author. Listen, pre-order the book. It's super helpful for the author and to let all the other places that the book is going to be distributed from know that they need to keep it in stock. So, if you're listening to the podcast right now, please do Blaine a favor and go pick up the book right now. Anywhere else that they can hang out with you, Blaine? Where can people do it?
Yeah, Instagram at Blaine Hogan. And then, as a 42-year-old, I think you'll appreciate this, Carlos. I have gotten onto the TikToks.
Yes.
At Blaine Hogan _director. I will say that 12 years ago, I invented TikTok dancing. This is a lesser known fact by way of what I called Happy Friday Dance Party. And so
I remember that.
Yeah. So I feel like, I had to get over myself and I'm like, no, I'm the OG. Like I invented this thing.
That is right. That is right. That is so good. Well, yeah. Well, I'll go follow you on TikTok too. Okay. I'm trying to figure out TikTok myself as I watch my daughter amass millions.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And you've got you got a Jedi master in the house.
Yeah, I do. Well, dude, it's been so good. Thanks for hanging out with the Human Hope fam. And I just, I'm so appreciative of your vulnerability, authenticity. But more than anything, you are truly doing what this podcast is called Human Hope, and you're spreading hope out for everybody. And I just appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. I told you that was good. Again, I need everybody to understand this truth that we all got a cave we got to get out of. Thank you, Blaine, so much for your wisdom. Guys, please go find Blaine on all the social channels. But more than anything, go pick up his book. Go get Exit the Cave, because it was healing for me, and I know it's going to be healing to many of you. Hey, Dr. Delight, why don't you hit it real quick? Oh, there we are. Friends, we did a little interview. I mean, I don't know. Who am I? Oprah freaking Winfrey. Here we are doing interviews again. I always love to know if you guys have people. Hold on. The beat's going to drop. Hey, all right. If you guys have people that you'd love to hear on the Human Hope Podcast, please DM me on Instagram. Let me know. I would love to get them involved in the program and let them tickle your ears as well. Y'all remember what to do. Please make sure you subscribe, like, and share the podcast today. Right now, if you listen to it, stop what you're doing, pick up your phone. Oh, you're holding your phone right now. Take it out your pocket and say, hey, everybody, it's time for you to go figure out how to exit the cave as well. Guys, if you want to watch this as well, head over to humanhopevideo.com, our YouTube channel. And that's it. I'm going to miss you. We're getting close to Thanksgiving. So I think we have like one more week before Thanksgiving, 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks. I don't know. My calendar's off. All I know is it's Christmas time around here. And I will see you next week on another episode of the Human Hope Podcast.